We do have a sponsor on the panel message to just slide in briefly. So Damien, if you're out there, I'm going to bring up the sponsor on the slot. I can't say it. The sponsor on the panel slide. Damien, go for it. Tell us about ATEME.
Thank you, Dom. Hello, everyone. Do you guys know the new ATEME? With the acquisition of Anivia last year, ATEME now offers a complete solution for delivering video across all platforms, including OTT, IPTV, and streaming platform. So why did ATEME acquire Anivia? It comes down to the three things that we value and that guide our corporate and product strategy. Number one, quality of experience. It's been said, but it's more important than anything. Whether they watch TV for the information or for entertainment, your audiences deserve the best possible viewing experience. OTT enables choice, and ATEME solution contribute to making the OTT experience exceptional. Second reason, profitability. You need to strive to continue offering exceptional video experiences. ATEME solution help you to add new sources of revenue, such as targeted advertising, cloud DVR, open caching, while also reducing cost through more efficient and flexible cloud-native video delivery platforms. And third reason is sustainability. Our impact on the world matters, and ATEME solution enables you to offer better viewing experience while also reducing your environmental impact. And I believe this is what the slide is about. It sums it up quite well. ATEME helps you reach millions of viewers on any screen with high quality of experience, new revenue streams, and sustainable video solutions.
Perfect. JT, back to you. It's your panel. Thank you, ATEME.
Awesome. Thanks, Damien. You're not the CTO. You're the Chief Sales Officer. Dude, that was a rocking pitch for ATEME. That was awesome. All right. So we just met Damien, who's the CTO of ATEME. We also have three other panelists involved. I want to give them just 5 seconds to sort of mention their name and what they do for the company they work for, and then we'll jump into questions. So let's Thierry, since you just joined video, tell us about yourself for a second.
Yes, I'm Thierry Fautier, Vice President of Video Strategy at Harmonic, involved in many new projects and active contributor at the SVA. Also in my team, we have one of the co-chair of Live, so we are quite believers and we are active and believers in the SVA work, and of course quite happy to debate today on the merits of open caching.
That's awesome. Debate was great. Steve Miller-Jones.
Yeah, hi there, everybody. I'm Steve Miller-Jones. I'm VP of Product Strategy at Limelight Networks. Been responsible for the product management and product direction and product strategy there for a while, including our new edge and distribution strategies and products. And I also co-chair the live streaming working group in the SVA. And it's a great pleasure to be on this panel talking about open caching and other things SVA.
Absolutely. And then Eric Klein, I see that you're there, but you're not there.
Here. Can you hear me at least?
Yes. Yes,
okay.
I can hear you.
All right.
For
some reason, my video is not working. I think they just don't want you to see my face. That's fine. That
you can turn it on now.
Oh, okay. Cool. There we go. Anyway, Eric Klein, Director of Media Distribution Technology over at Disney Streaming, responsible for Disney Plus, Hulu, ESPN Plus, and also co-chair of the Open Caching Working Group. So all things open caching, I've been dealing with it for 4+ years now at this point.
All things open caching. Do you have a little open caching tattoo on your arm? Like that I know is commitment. I need to see that.
I may or may not be wearing an SVA t-shirt under here with open caching blazing. So you got that representation today.
I love it. All right, so let's sort of like break the ground here with understanding kind of what are the real life challenges in content delivery. And maybe Steve, maybe you can start this one off and then everybody else jump in after Steve.
Sure. I mean, real life challenges for content delivery, right? We've heard a lot through the day about different approaches to challenges of scale. We've heard a lot of pieces from you just then about some of the opportunities for collaboration across the industry. In the sponsor video just then, there was a good nod towards QoE and performance and sustainability. So there are many pieces of just doing good business in any part of our industry. key things for distributing someone like Eric's content so that the consumers are getting the experience they want. It's all about consistency, reliability, and performance, and that lends itself or leads us into series of conversations about key performance indicators. What matters about live content versus on-demand content versus something that has some imperative for more real time versus something that is deep in a library that very few people watch. Surprisingly, or maybe not, the KPIs don't change that much. If it doesn't start quickly without error, there's a problem. If it's going to rebuffer or freeze during the event at the crucial moment, there's a problem. If you cannot get the quality you're expecting, there's a problem. So the big challenge is, as the industry grows in terms of both consumers, numbers of platforms available, and the libraries of content that are now online, the big challenges, I think, as scale increases, are going to continue to be how to provide the very best experience for the next request every single time. And I think that in a nutshell, that's from a product management perspective in the CDN, you have to approach the problem. The value we're offering is a very, very high quality experience for the next user. And that's a way to approach it, how we think about it in product at Limelight.
Everybody else. Thierry, thoughts? Eric, thoughts?
Yes, so I was inspired by the Netflix SVP, ex-SVP of network delivery, and I would summarize it as Open Connect is one company delivering to its own CDN, so they managed to do it. And what we have as a challenge in the open caching is end companies of content delivering to ISPs, and if we don't have a standard, it's absolutely impossible to deliver at scale with interoperability and so forth. And Eric will probably explain us what are the challenges to do so. So I think if we want to do what Netflix has done, I'm quite happy to see Disney starting to get close to the numbers. We need a standard, and we need interoperability, and we need collaboration. I think collaboration was a good term. I've not heard that term for many years. In open framework, people always say, you pay me, you charge me too much, your traffic is too high. We need to stop. I think this nonsense doesn't get us very far. I would like us to collaborate much more, and I think SVA is the right place to have that. And I know Mark is also cooking something on the CDN, so I don't know if Mark is going to break any news today, but we also need to bring the CDN companies a bit closer together, because as it is today, it's a bit the Wild West.
We had a sneak preview of that earlier.
Perfect.
Good.
Oh, you're watching him? Are you?
Ian Jefferson.
Okay.
Ian Jefferson is talking.
Damien and Eric, what are your thoughts on that? I guess Damien, if you want to jump in first.
Yeah, why not? Interesting what was just said, and I think one piece of the equation that we should add as well is, well, obviously content is king, and that is not going to change. But on the other, you look at what the consequences on the network for the telcos and the ISPs of this world. And at the moment, what we see is that those ISPs at the moment, what they just need to pile up a number of Netflix cache servers just next to another rack of Google cache server, next to another rack of Facebook cache server, next to another rack, etc., etc. And this ends up with something that is really inefficient, not sustainable for sure. And seen from the ISP, the benefit of open caching with the possibility to have one single infrastructure for all the CDN, at least all the OTT video delivery capabilities. So let's say the video CDNs of the network shared across all the different content providers. This is really key. Key because it's more efficient, key because it's more sustainable, and key because then the ISP has the possibility to get back the control of its network instead of just letting the Netflix, the Google, and everyone install their own cache server inside the ISP's network. I believe it's important, especially when we see those networks being transformed to host 5G, and 5G means potentially edge caching, At least it means edge resources and potentially edge caching. So I believe this is the perfect timing for things to change and stop adding more and more CDNs within the ISP's network.
Eric.
So I wanted to pick up on a third that Thierry kind of raised about collaboration. You know, in the space that we're in with Disney and the growth of Disney Plus, we leverage quite a lot of commercial CDNs as part of our strategy. We also leverage, of course, open caching. And we continue to look at ourselves as builders, developing new technology and solutions to reach our customers however we need to. But one of the things that's clear, particularly in my role in the seat I sit in, is the difficulty of coordination, the difficulty of standards across everything. And that consistency is something that is really driving the work that we're doing now through open caching and through the SVA. It is that push for a consistent standard way for all CDNs to engage, whether it be through configuration management, whether it be through communicating capacity changes, or whether it just be through the simple fact of, hey, everyone, we're all architected roughly the same way. We all may have a little bit of our own special sauce, but we're delivering bytes from an edge. We're doing it in a smart way. And in certain cases, we might be embedded within ISPs. In other cases, we might be embedded in internet exchange points, but ultimately the end goal is to get customers the best experience out of any specific provider in any one route to market. And I think for that, standards, consistency, a single way for the content provider to engage with all the different networks out there is a big thrust for us moving forward.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. You kind of answered, you know, like all you guys answered sort of two questions at once, right? Some of these challenges are technical, and I actually really like, you know, Steve's description of, you know, making sure it's a great experience for the next byte delivered, right? That's really cool. I really like that. You know, obviously, if you're always looking at the next thing that's coming and making sure that that's better than the last or consistent with the last, you know, that's fantastic. And so you guys have sort of described these technical issues, as well as like, why is open caching important to the industry, right? I think you guys have just described it, right? It's interoperability. It's a standard way of doing things. It's consistent. It's, you know, to Damien's point, right? It's sustainable, right? You don't have to have 150 different caches in your network from, you know, 37 different CDNs. You just got, you know, you could have like just a group that are all open caching compliant, and kind of all the content can flow through this. I think that's really important. So let me ask you this, and maybe Eric, you can start us with this, and everyone can jump in. But what are some of the pieces of open caching that are, you know, important, right, to fulfilling that need? Is it you know, the configuration API is the most important, or the management API is most important? What do you think about that?
Well, it's kind of an interesting crux of a question that you asked, because we're currently serving traffic over open caching without the capacity API being finished and without the configuration API being finished. So I think there's two things that are incredibly important about open caching. One, architecture. The consistency of the architecture and the consistency of the implementation style, as you pointed out, which we're going to walk through on the microsite when it gets launched, that leads to consistency of performance. We have multiple different partners and different open caches and different networks that we're currently leveraging today, and all of them outperform any other solution that we currently have to market. The reason why: there's a consistency of architecture, there's a stability to these platforms, and there's a standard way to work. The configuration and the capacity APIs that we're working on are just two of the next projects in terms of that interoperability and that consistency, or the configuration track. Those are both about just how do you manage it in an easier manner. You reduce the need for so many hands to get involved, and you can start to manage things in a more consistent manner. But before you even get there, it's all about the consistency of performance to know if you even should invest the time to do that work. And seeing the consistency of performance because the architecture is consistent everywhere, and there is an openness to how everything works and transparency to how we can engage with these caches is tantamount to the same type of visibility you always want in the industry, and not everyone necessarily gets. And so it helps move the conversation forward of, I know exactly where my open caches are. I know where they're reaching customers. Great. The next step is how can I better configure those and better optimize those from a capacity and performance standpoint to make incremental improvements on top of what is already a fantastic performing platform.
Other thoughts? Steve, I mean, obviously you operate a commercial CDN. What are the important components for you guys as you start looking at this from a commercial CDN perspective?
I mean, I think, Eric hit on a really important piece of collaboration and the consistency in description of how capacity is made available and how to interact with configurations across multiple hardware platforms, environments, and software environments. I think the really important thing for us to think about, and sort of coming also back to one of Damien's points, is, the ability to communicate with a consistent configuration and to interrogate locations for capacity and be able to decide I should be able to send some traffic there. We need to also think about how over time, it's the flexibility in that capacity in those environments is being used. So it's not like they're all the same SSDs, right? They're not all. It's not a completely homogeneous environment. So there's going to be, I imagine over time, some variation in the characteristics of the different caches that are in or part of the open or using open caching configurations and are part of anyone's ability to distribute content. So then, it becomes a really important piece about, I'm targeting an open cache. However, it happens to have a spinning disk versus an SSD for some variation of reason that, maybe it's in a slightly more distant part of the network somewhere. And to Eric's point, the consistency in performance, if we're able to get it from fairly common sets of hardware, fairly common sets of implementations, it then comes down to how well does that individual cache manage its queue, its LRU, its ability to have a lot of content in cache. Is it being used, in a VM environment, and 2 hours later it's going to be used for some other type of processing? So can it have a deep cache? Is it useful for live only? There are some questions about how we think about consuming the capacity once we're able to collaborate on how to use it. How or the heterogeneity of it will come into play. Is it all going to perform in exactly the same way? Or are we going to also have to think about, well, in this in location X, the open caching is great because I can talk to it. However, in that location, it hasn't worked as well as some other providers. So as we embrace open caching as an industry, I think the importance of the performance of the individual caching layers is also really important. And it's not just a hand wave given, obviously. And that's where, as we work on software at Limelight and we work on efficiency and we work on getting more gigabits per watt out of the power we consume, it's about being able to interact with the standards and interact with the openness and collaborate more, and also know that we've got consistent performance across the locations we do it. So I think those are, the complexity starts coming to life as we start using it more. But I think Eric's right. The collaboration piece is massively important.
No, I mean, and that's really interesting to hear from that perspective. And Damien, maybe you can chime in here as well. I mean, you guys obviously with sort of the combination of ATEME and EVA, like you said, you have a full solution now. What are some of the important components that you guys are seeing that you want to be able to integrate and offer to your customers?
Yeah, maybe to start with the previous question, if you don't mind, regarding the set of API. I don't think that there is one set of API more important than any other, because the whole thing is to make sure that we have all the different sets of API, because otherwise we start getting into specifics. And if we start getting into specific, then everything just, nothing works anymore. So making sure that we have true API, all of them implemented, all of them documented, etc., etc. I believe this is very important. To add to what Steve just said, I think it's particularly interesting when we start thinking about live TV, because for now on, a lot of things have been done, and I believe that we have reached a great quality of experience and great setups, great architecture for on-demand content CDNs. And this is what was presented for Netflix. This is what is currently, fully deployed by Disney. But the next real step is to go to that same scale with live TV, including low latency. How do you manage to do it on a worldwide basis? Low latency, no more than what we currently have on broadcast TV, whatever it is, 4 seconds to live, maybe less. This is really the big target. And in that case, we have to dig even further into the complexity of the different cache servers and the different routes, because not all routes are equal. So this, for me, is one of the key next topic to work on, making sure that we can actually deliver the same kind of great architecture for low latency live TV. Capacity planning is also very important because, I mean, we're seeing content getting always encoded with higher quality. Most of the new pieces of content are now 4K, HDR. Tomorrow's gonna go 8K, and I doubt it will actually stop at any point. So even though we try to compress it more and more, we still need more bandwidth. So more bandwidth means better capacity planning at the end in order to make sure that each time there is an upgrade in the content quality, encoding quality, then there is the available capacity to deliver it.
Oh, that makes sense. Thierry, obviously, going to come to you. To you for your
yes. Well, I would like to put a bit more in the basket because, of course, low latency is something everybody has been working, and Harmonic was quite happy to show the first demonstration. But there is another beast called DAI, ad insertion, dynamic with playlist manipulation. Then, of course, we all need DRM, and then you have watermarking that could be inserted at the edge, either CDN or open cache. So if you put low latency DAI, DRM, watermarking, you have probably a job for next 3 years at least, Jason, because this is a challenge at scale. If we talk at scale, live is going to be a big impact. And one of the comments I would like to make on open caching, of course, we love API, but we also need to realize that this should also run in a cloud-based infrastructure. At some time, stacking boxes, I love what Quilt is doing, and the Cisco Big Brother bringing caches and financing is great. But I think the real kick for this technology will be when the telcos are taking their future into their hands and say, yes, we want to do what we do in wireless network 5G. We also want to do that in wired network. And I know operators like Deutsche Telekom have also some ambitions. We were talking before about the ambition to drop multicast, but also those are big operators have an ambition to try to standardize their infrastructure and try to stop the addiction of boxes to move towards a more cloud-based infrastructure. And I know it's not the open caching discussion, but in order to host those smart functionalities, especially if we have to move into the live use case, you will have elasticity. You will need elasticity.
No, I mean, and actually it is applicable. So when you start looking at, the concept of cloud, so cloud as we see it now is sort of virtualize a box. So it was a box, and now I'll put it as software, somebody else's box. But really what we're talking about is we're moving to cloud native, right? We're moving to serverless functionality. We're pushing things out into the edge, and that's part of the very fabric of the cloud itself. So just imagine that, like, why have specific boxes in cloud providers for specific functionality? It should just be all one box, it's all the same, and it creates one giant cloud in which all of functionality lives in a serverless capacity. I think that's where things are moving, and that's not tomorrow, that's probably like 20 years from now. But imagine caching being part of that, right? So content is part of the very fabric of the cloud itself. Illuvio is doing this, right? They are, gotten to this concept of sort of a content fabric, and I love that model. I think that's where things are going. Then APIs, it's again, everything is just native. It's just all part of the cloud. I don't need to stand up a box. I just need to make sure that my serverless function is compliant with the API so that it can be accessed and I can see what capacity is available, both from a storage and delivery perspective. So that's where I think things are going. In the meantime, to address something Eric said about, different, and Steve said about different caches being, you got to sort of understand what caches. Imagine having an open caching plugin for Nginx. Right? Why isn't that a thing, right? We'll get to that point. So then, but the point is like Nginx can be installed anywhere. Like you can install it on any box, in the cloud, on-prem. And so to Eric's and Steve's point, now you really have to start worrying about what, when I'm querying this capacity footprint, like what am I querying and how is it going to be impactful of the performance of delivering the bits? To Steve's point, the next bit better than the last. So I think those are all, Thierry, what you raised are all valid points in relation to open caching. So, I think this is really interesting in terms of what's important, in terms of functionality to both CDNs and to content rights holders and, and again, into service providers. So I think that's, this is very interesting. The last question I sort of want to end on is really about performance, right? And so I'm gonna talk to Eric. You don't have to give any numbers. No exact numbers. Speak nothing that will get you in trouble. But just talk a little bit about what are you guys seeing, and then maybe Damien and Steve and Thierry can weigh in on what they've seen in different places as well.
So what can I can share a little bit of insight in terms of how we do performance calculation today, a little bit of preview towards our panel or our fireside chat later. So the way we calculate performance for our different distribution endpoints that we leverage is all based on a scale against the mean. What's the actual performance and how are we going to compare it based on both reliability and core key metrics, week over week, month over month, to determine what against that standard deviation from the mean a specific platform is at. So if we do that calculation as we do it month over month, we tend to find that our open caches are in the 96th percentile, 91 to 96th percentile. They're the top performers across anything that we leverage day in and day out. Obviously the scale is smaller. The targeted location is smaller because we're leveraging on-net locations. So there's a little bit of a different determination that you have to take into account when you factor that in. But it is something that statistically is clearly our top performer from all the key metrics that we look at, both from an implied metric standpoint that you would have in a client side metric development, or even from raw metrics that we gather back as well. So performance wise, there's nothing that we see that says to us that open caching isn't an important part of our mix moving forward. It doesn't indicate to us that there's a challenge in the market, and it also indicates us to continue to invest in it. The question then becomes, though, if you're investing in performance on open caching, and right now, to your point of the future vision, where it's you can query one spot and gain back a wealth of information of all the different open caches that are deployed. Right now, you're really looking at individual on-net deployments at different locations. So the question then becomes, okay, how do you prioritize which on-net locations and deployments you then put your work effort against? And so that becomes a question of how many customers are those open caches reaching. So it's an interesting paradigm. Performance is really good, but the next question is, how can we continue to spread open caching so that we can get that performance in a broader and broader environment? And the nice thing I can say is we leverage open caching in a couple of different flavors, different providers, different technology solutions. All of them perform in this general manner. Give or take a few percentage points delta, but all of them perform in this general manner. So it's nice to see consistency of that data, and also see that this architecture and this framework is while it's, I would say, nascent, right? We've been working on the specs for 2.5 years, and we've kind of seen a lot of growth in the last year. It's heading in a strong and encouraging direction.
Absolutely. Damien, are you guys doing any testing right now? Or seeing any customers testing it?
Yeah, we're doing some testing, and in terms of performance, to go a little bit further. So obviously, from the content provider point of view, what really matters is the quality delivered at the end of the chain. But on our side, what we also look at, which is very important to us, is how many bits we save on the backbone. So for those operators, how much do we save bandwidth? So, and this is really the hit ratio we can get at every stage of the CDN, and making sure that every point we can reduce the consumption of the backbone of the telco, we can actually do that. So that's part of our performance indicator as well, because that's probably the difference between two different CDNs. At the end, they will be able to deliver the content. They may actually be able to deliver the content with the same quality, but maybe one will actually require twice the same amount of bandwidth on the backbone. So that's a key one, a key performance. And the other key performance indicator that we're looking at, on top of obviously the quality of experience, which always comes first, is also the sustainability. So looking at how many gigabit per second we can deliver per watt. So, and this is becoming a key target. And this is something that we are really looking deep into in order to make sure that we can offer the best solution to our customer.
Oh, that's great. Okay, guys, we are actually at the top of the half an hour. So I need to say thank you. That was fantastic discussion. Obviously, you know, again, we're going to announce that open caching microsite. A lot of what they're talking about is going to be on the site. So we'll let everyone know when that's available, and you can just go dig in. And again, thanks Thierry and Steve and Eric and Damien. You guys are fantastic. And I'll turn it back over to Don.
Awesome panel. Thank you, JT. Brilliant. And thank you everyone for taking part. Eric, we'll see you again at the fireside shortly. Thierry, Steve, and Damien. Damien, thanks for sponsoring as well. We'll see you soon. Stick around, answer questions that are coming in on the chat room if you get a chance through the afternoon.